Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Tell Your Story. I'm Todd Nesloney, your host. I am the Director of Culture and Strategic Leadership for TEPSA. Each week, I seek to bring you somebody who has inspired, encouraged, or challenged me in one way or another. The whole web series of this Tell Your Story is based after my book, Stories from Web, with the whole precipice that every story matters. I'm thrilled this week to bring you my special guest, Brandon Herwick. Brandon, thanks for being here. Tell everybody a little bit about who you are.
Hey, it's an absolute pleasure. My name is Brandon Herwick. I am an elementary physical education teacher. I'm also an open national trainer, and I've taken a little break, but I'm a pretty frequent run and ranter. I taught for 4 years in Brooklyn, right off Ocean Parkway, and now I teach right south of Albany.
Awesome. So, you're in education. Did you always see yourself as somebody who was going to be in that field?
So out of high school, I was going to be one of three things. It was either going to be a pastry chef, it was going to be a musical theater major, and hopefully a Broadway actor, or it was going to be a teacher. And both my parents are teachers. My grandmother was a secretary in the school, so teaching's in my blood. And over an epic battle of table tennis between my dad and I, we realized that I could bake whenever I wanted to. I could use music theater in my teaching, and then teaching would probably be the best, most practical route.
I love that. When you were talking about those, I was like, well, you could tie baking and the other one both into teaching. So you kind of get all of what you want to do. So where did that love for baking come from? I'm interested in that.
So I think it was a family thing. Like my uncle always right around Easter time, he taught me when I was quite young on how to make Easter egg bread. And it wasn't, we would make the pile of flour, we'd make the kind of the well in the middle, we'd add all the ingredients in there and then mix it. And it was the first time that I put things together and created something that was really beautiful and that like everyone got a lot of enjoyment out of. So I think from there, and then my grandfather was Turkish, and he would make like baklava, which would take like hours to make, but again, like everyone would enjoy it. So I think the process, the family kind of connection, and then the enjoyment coming from it really brought me to it.
So do you still make time to bake now?
I do. Yeah, not as much as I'd like, but the other day my wife was like, I'd really like to have some banana bread. And I was gone for like 45 minutes and then I come back and I go, how's this? And it made her night. But yeah, no, not as much as I like, but I still do.
That's awesome. What's your favorite thing to bake?
Ooh, when I was younger, I really enjoyed creme brulee because it was so simple. And it was so delicious. It's really just a custard with some sugar. And of course, as like a younger kid, you always like when you can use a flame. So, but yeah. So, but now I like to watch shows like The Chef's Table and a lot of other cooking shows because I like to see how chefs manage their kitchen, but I also like to see how they use their creativity to create these things that not only make them world renowned, but elicit such a reaction from people, and I try to do that in my teaching, whether it be planning my lesson plan or how I interact with my peers or my colleagues or my students. I think there's a lot to be learned from that.
So are you a Nailed It fan?
No, I haven't checked that. Now, for everyone who doesn't know, give us what Nailed It is.
Nailed It is a Netflix show where they bring on 3 people each episode who are not known for their baking skills at all. And they show them this beautiful like cake or these cake pops and they have to recreate.
Yeah.
And then what you see is every time they unveil it, they're like, nailed it. And it's not close even to what and sometimes it's not even edible. But the host is like one of the funniest television hosts out there. And so you would love Do you watch Sugar Rush?
See, these are all ones like I need to get into. I know.
See,
I used to watch Sugar Rush like
Netflix addict, so obviously I watch too much. But
well, I mean, you could be watching like things that don't entertain you or you actually learn from. There's at least a little learning, right?
See, and Sugar Rush would be right up your alley because it's all baking stuff. So it's really, they're good. They're not. It's not like Nailed It where they're not very good. Sugar Rush, they're like really good. It's very impressive.
We're going to have to create another one of these called #TellYourSugarStory or like Tell Your Baking Failure. I think
there we go.
Viral.
There we go. Okay. So, you're a physical education teacher and you're my first physical education teacher to interview on any of the podcasts that I've done. So I'm super excited to pump to you. What drew you to that part of education?
Wow. So short story long, I was kind of an overweight kid who had like some self-esteem issues because of it. I didn't really know how to live a healthy life. I would have 2 or 3 bagels, like slapped with butter for breakfast, and then I'd have like a huge kind of unhealthy snack. And I would just I'd overeat and I wouldn't exercise as much. So I think that kind of led me down a negative path. Mm-hmm. And then I had some really inspirational physical education teachers, especially my elementary physical education teacher named Mrs. Lavaroni. She lived what she preached. She went on a 100-mile bike ride, I think in the middle of my elementary physical experience. And she had a huge assembly. We made signs for her and we welcomed her into the school at the end of the 100 miles. And she was one of those teachers where you wouldn't want to misbehave because she would know and she'd get you. But she would also be the first to celebrate you and encourage you and give you a big hug. So I think from her, and then my middle school and high school physical education teachers were inspirational in their own way. So going down that kind of negative path and not living a healthy lifestyle and then having such positive role models, right. I think that really imprinted on me. So when I was deciding what kind of teacher I wanted to be, it really made sense that physical education was the path to go down. And now, oh boy, Todd, once you've opened up the world of physical education, I think you're going to want every other guest to be a physical ed teacher. Sure.
Well, I love your story about why you became one, because I think that makes you even more relatable to kids because you can see that passion that lies in there. And, and full confession, I always wanted to be a PE teacher. I was so jealous.
Wow.
I could do this and we could do this and we could learn this. So my question for you, though, is kind of the flip side of that. Oftentimes those specials teachers, art, PE, things like that, don't get the same kind of respect that a classroom teacher gets. You still have standards you have to cover. You still have to create lessons. Do you find yourself sometimes kind of battling that misconception that you just go in there and play all day?
Yeah, and kudos to you for acknowledging that. I mean, that there's a big kind of not argument, but discussion within the physical education world on if we should accept when people or students call it gym class, consider, instead of physical education. Gym derives from gymnasium, which derived from gymnastics, which derived from the early history of Turner gymnastics that came and got us moving in the early 1900s, late 1800s in America. Physical education really is about physical literacy now and living your adventure. Physical literacy is feeling competent and confident in a wide range of skills. So that's really what we try to teach our students now and what we try to teach our colleagues and our parents when they come in. This week, it's actually pretty special that we get to have this conversation this week because from Monday till Friday, it's the National Take Your Parent to PE Week run by Active School. Yeah. And so this week, we're going to have over 180 parents coming into my coworker and my physical education classes, taking our classes. So, and we teach that. We talk about how physical education is, we have standards that we're trying to get these physical skills, but we're also trying to teach social emotional learning. We're trying to teach grit. We're talking about growth mindsets, and we're really trying to prepare them for to have the tools to live a healthy, active lifestyle for their life. So cool.
Your position has so many real life applications that you can work with kids and just people may think, well, the physical education teacher at my school doesn't do anything, and when I hear stuff like that, I'm like, well, there's teachers at schools that I worked at too who just sit behind their desk all day, so it's not like you can pigeonhole one subject or one area. But I love too that your position has such a unique opportunity daily to focus on soft skills and to focus on collaboration. And, in the general education classroom, typically that comes with certain projects or things like that. But it's everything you get to do. You teach kids how to interact, how to control their emotions, how to be good sports, but also how to learn the health side of things and the nutrition facts and how that plays into their life. What do you get most passionate about when it comes to your position?
I think there's a few, right? One of the first things I'm super passionate about is when a student learns something and has that aha moment, right? Whether it be a skill they're learning or they've been really trying to connect with a peer and then all of a sudden they had a positive interaction. Whenever they have that, there's a visible exhilarating, joy, exuberance that they show. I also really like telling stories like I haven't read your book yet, but I'm going to have to check it out because we have such an opportunity in education, especially in physical education, to tell stories and give a platform for our students to tell their stories. Right now, I'm doing a dragon training in my kindergarten, first and second grade classes. And it's really just a fitness circuit where they're doing burpees and they're doing squats and they're doing jumps. But the jumps are they're jumping over a river dragon tail. And the squats, is a river tree dragon that's swinging, or a tree dragon that's swinging its tail. The burpees, we have to all go down. And, our families are not trained to be dragon warriors. So if the dragons start flying away, we need to go from our laying down position to stand up and say, "Hey, dragon," and call the dragons back and then come back down. And, here the kids are doing 5-10 burpees in the minute, and they're not even realizing it because they're having so much fun. So,
well, and that's what I love. I mean, you got to be passionate about what you're doing, and you've got to figure out a way to get those kids engaged regardless of what your content or subject area is. And I love to, going back to what you said a minute ago, that this is National Bring Your Parent to Physical Education Week. And I love that I didn't know that, because I'm like, oh, I want to go search it out, advertise it, because I think that's so cool. So you've already had 2 days of that.
Yes.
And have you done this before in years past?
So this will be our second or third year, but there's some schools just a few shout outs, like Will Potter's been doing this in California for, 5 or 6 years now. And a bunch of different schools have been doing it for a long time. A friend, Jim DeLine in Texas, actually at Highland Park Elementary, he actually has a full year of welcoming parents in. Whenever they want to come, write them the week before, they come in, they interact, they are his assistant coaches, and they get to help out. They take a picture, and it's a great advocacy piece for our programs. But it's also so fun. When the kids have their parents come in, they become the teachers as well. So second or third year, and it's been really rewarding. Every parent is like, "Hey, thanks again for doing it this year." And I had one grandfather come in, and after we're building hula huts, and we're talking about community, and we're carrying them on the joints and talking about having strong foundations in our community. Grandfather comes to me after class and he goes, I thought we were just going to be playing around in here, but there's some real learning going on. And I was like, yes, you got it.
Changing that stigma.
Yeah. So
I love that. Well, Brandon, when you think about your own upbringing, you talked a little bit about growing up overweight, having some self-esteem issues, and that playing into some things. But when you think about your whole life up until this point, I know this is a big question, so I know there's multiple answers. But what is something that you think really played a part into making you the man you are today?
Wow. I think it was the people in my life that set the example for me to follow and then take aspects of, whether it be those physical education teachers in my elementary, middle school, and high school experience, to college. I got to New York State, which is our state association of health, physical education, recreation, and dance, going to national AFRD or SHAPE conferences. And then now being an open national trainer, being able to travel around and meet different educators and meet other really amazing teachers. I think, I tell this guy, Jim DeLine, who teaches in Texas, he's like a time machine. I've learned so much from him and so many other educators within the phys ed world, Joey Fife, Aaron Hart, all these amazing people, Pam Powers, that they've accelerated my teaching, years, where if I was trying to learn these things on my own, I either wouldn't have learned the concepts or activities or it would have taken me a long time. So I got to meet Lucinda Adams, who's a former Olympian. She was a track and field, and during a time in which her skin color affected the places where she was able to compete. She's an African-American athlete, and she tells stories sometimes about being run out of towns. And she was a former AFRD president. She was also obviously a gold medalist Olympian. And she said, I go, Lucinda, how are you so successful? What did it take? And she said 3 things. You have to have great ideas. You have to surround yourself with people to spread those ideas and kind of help vet them and smooth them out. And then you have to work really hard just to promote them and keep spreading the good word, right? So learning so many different lessons from so many different people, I think, is what makes me and what helps me continue to grow, and be kind of a lifelong learner.
I love it. And, that ties perfectly into the series of telling your story and learning from each other. Yeah. So, you mentioned an open national trainer. What is that?
Yeah. So Open is the online physical education network.
Okay.
It was started by a guy named Aaron Hart and Nick Klein, who went to a equipment company called US Games and said, Aaron used to work in the Bronx, which is how we kind of connected, because I taught in Brooklyn, he taught in the Bronx, and we both didn't have a lot of resources for our students. And he said, if I ever get a chance in which I can give away curriculum so that teachers can have a high quality standards-based set of curricula for their students, I'm going to do it. So he got the chance. He went to US Games and said, hey, I want you to fund this curriculum. They said, all right, we'll give it a shot. And they committed $500,000 the first year, $1 million the second year. And now this is the second, third year. We're over 40,000 members of physical education, recreation teachers, and after school practitioners. And it's a set of free curriculum. You go to openphysed.org, you create a free login, and then there's standards-based curriculum from kindergarten till 12th grade for after school, for active schools, and it has a whole set for Take Your Parents to PE Week, just for free. With the mission that if we have the access to this stuff, then we can better teach our students.
So you mentioned you were a trainer. So, presenting in front of kids and working with them all day is one thing. Working with adults is a totally different thing. Was that something you like naturally jumped right into, or were you like, oh my God, I don't know if I can do this?
Yeah, a little of both, right? So I think I was able to get in front of a crowd and be like, hey, look at me. And then figuring out what to say when you had that platform took a little while.
Yeah.
And again, every time I would recommend anyone thinking about doing something that maybe they're not as comfortable with, whether it be going to become an administrator or going to be a presenter or even presenting at a conference or to their staff, go be prepared, know what you're going to say, and then just learn from the experience, because I'm such I feel like a better teacher and a better colleague, because during trainings, there's some people that really just want to have their voice heard. There's some people that really just want to learn. There's some people who don't really want to participate, but they're absorbing everything, and that translates to not only students, but it translates to colleagues and how you can kind of interact and get the most out of them and have them help you be your best as well.
I love that. Well, what I love about you is how reflective you are. And even when you talk, like you bring a natural energy and passion to the things that you're saying, because you know that you really believe them and you're really in love with those ideas. And so my question for you is, obviously, like anybody else, you've got to have those days where you're like, am I even cut out for this? Like, I feel like I'm not doing it right. The kids aren't getting it. Like when you reach that moment of where the doubt starts to seep in, how do you keep from letting it overtake you?
That's tough. Yeah. Cause everyone feels that, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think it's just about getting up and going. Cause once you get there, I used to do karate when I was younger, and sometimes, I'd be on my video games or reading a book, or it was getting late, and, my mom would be like, all right, it's time to go. And I was like, no, I don't want to go, but every time I went, I was always happy I had gone. So I think sometimes when you're having a tough day and maybe you don't want to go, just get up and go. That, a student's going to come and give you a high five, or they're going to tell you how much they mean to you, or, someone's going to give you a smile, and it's going to make it all worth it. If you're in the middle of the day and you're having a rough one, one of the best compliments I got from my student teacher, whose position I'm now in, was, if you make a mistake one lesson, don't make the same mistake the next lesson. And that's huge. I think if you can learn from what you just did so you don't do it again, and you can improve from your previous self, right? We do an activity where we do a fitness activity where you and I would compete. We spin a hula hoop. You'd spin it for me. I'd do a certain amount of fitness activities, and then I'd spin it for you. And the beautiful thing about it is we're not competing against each other. You are helping encourage me beat my former self, right? Beat my score, and I'm helping you encourage you so you can beat your former self. And we need to learn from where we've been so we know where we are and where we want to go, right?
Wow, that's powerful. I love that, and I love the whole mindset shift, even with the kids, of not competing against each other, but competing against themselves. Yes. And I love what you said at the beginning too, because it reminded me, one of my good friends, Kim Bearden, once said, you've got to fake it till you make it. And it's not that you're pretending, it's that you get up there and you fake it until your body and brain like begins to believe, okay, yeah, I got this, I can do this. Okay, now I'm in the right mindset. And then the natural instinct of you just takes over and it helps you. So it's just like you're saying, like, get up and show up, and you'll see that some of those other things will begin to fall in place for you.
Absolutely.
Well, Brandon, one of the things I love to always end my conversations with is, if there was one thing that you wish more people knew or understood, what would your one thing be?
Wow.
It doesn't have to do with education, but it can if you wanted to.
I've been hearing a lot, and I don't know, we're in a crazy climate now in the world. And I think it was Trevor Noah or someone was saying, they were just saying, seek first to understand and then to be understood, right? For me, early on in my teaching career, I would compare myself to so many other people, and you're never going to be better than someone else at being themselves. You can only be the best self you can be. So, I love the quote from President Roosevelt, that said, comparison is the thief of joy. Learn from everyone, make sure you connect with everyone. So you realize that everyone's human, everyone's going through the same things. Really quickly, I used to travel with a program called People to People, started by Dwight D. Eisenhower. And the message was peace through understanding. When you get to know someone, it's really difficult, at least not to respect that they have an opinion, and that opinion needs to be respected. So I would just encourage everyone to, again, get up, go through the day, reach out to those that you love and that love you. If you don't have them, know that you're not on an island. If you're a physical education teacher, reach out to Open, reach out to Shape, reach out to P Central, reach out to Joey Fife, reach out to the #FitEd. If you're not, reach out to Todd. Todd's going to be able to connect you. You're going to be able to connect everyone. And
right.
Can I finish with one last story?
Yeah, of course.
All right. And first, a few shout outs. Mark Friedrich said he was going to tune in. So shout out to Mark. And then shout out to Mark Ryan. If you love to run and you love to tell stories, go to #RunAndRant and check that out on Twitter. But I went to my buddy Mike Martinez's wedding, and we were crying. It was a beautiful event. It was right by a lake. And the woman who was officiating was talking about how we all had a responsibility for their love now, for the couple, him and Sarah. And she was saying, she took a trip to the Pacific Northwest and saw the redwood trees, and they were majestic. But she was really kind of surprised because the redwood trees are the tallest trees in the world, growing hundreds of feet in the air and maybe hundreds of years old, but they have no anchor root. Usually trees will have an anchor root that keeps them in the ground, so when a storm comes, they can dig real deep down and hold them up. Redwoods don't have that. And she goes, well, how do they stand? Hundreds of feet in the air, no anchor root? It doesn't make sense. And what she discovered is that all of these redwood trees grow their roots, instead of deep, they grow them wide. And they intertwine with all the other redwood roots that were near them and out wide. And she said, when there's a storm, whether it be near or far, they all hold each other up. And I think it's a beautiful message for us as people and us as educators. We're all in this to try to make everyone better, including our students and ourselves and all the people around us. Grow your roots wide and intertwine them with a lot of people so that when you're having a tough time or others, you can help support them and they can help support you.
Talk about a mic drop. Like, that was brilliant. I was like, wow, that story's amazing. Like,
Todd, thank you for now being part of my network.
That's awesome. Well, Brandon, I'm so thrilled that I got to chat with you tonight, and thank you for coming and sharing some of your story and making some time for me. You're amazing, so thank you.
You're amazing. My pleasure. Thank you so much.
And thank you, everybody, for listening or watching another episode of Tell Your Story. Remember, you can check out all the past episodes on iTunes, Spotify, SoundCloud, YouTube, wherever you want to get your podcast. It's there. So make sure to check it out and hear all the other amazing guests and their stories as well. I hope Brandon's story today has inspired you to get out there and be brave enough and tell your story, because like I say every week, every story matters.